Sarah Miller stared at the broken-down ranch house that was supposed to be their new home. Paint peeled from rotting walls, windows were cracked, and the roof had holes. Her father smiled hopefully, but Sarah wondered, how could they possibly survive here with only a few $100s and shattered dreams? Before watching full story, comment below from where are you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The old pickup truck made loud noises as it drove up the dusty road. Tom Miller held the steering wheel with his rough hands. His blue eyes looked tired, but he still had hope. Next to him sat his 16-year-old daughter, Sarah. Her long brown hair was tied back, and she wore her favorite denim jacket. "There it is, honey," Tom said softly, pointing ahead. "Our new home." Sarah looked up from her book and gasped. The ranch house looked old and broken. The white paint was coming off the wooden walls. The front porch was falling down on one side. Many windows were cracked. The roof had holes where the wind blew through. "Dad," Sarah whispered, "are you sure about this?" Tom felt sad, but he smiled anyway. "It just needs some work, sweetheart. Your grandpa built this place with his own hands in 1952. It has been in our family for many years." They got out of the truck and walked to the house. Their boots made crunching sounds on the dry grass. Sarah saw that the fence was falling over, and the barn looked ready to break down. "The lawyer said we get 50 acres of land," Tom explained, trying to sound happy. "We can raise cattle and horses. We can start over." Sarah wanted to cry. They had lost everything in Colorado when the bank took their farm. Her mother had died 3 years ago from cancer. The hospital bills cost all their money. Now they were here, far from everything, with just a few $100s and broken dreams. As they walked up the old front steps, their neighbor Jake Morrison rode up on his horse. Jake was a big man with gray hair and mean eyes. He owned the biggest ranch in the area and never liked the Miller family. "Well, well," Jake called out with a nasty laugh. "Look what came here. Tom Miller and his little girl trying to play ranch." Tom got angry, but he kept his voice calm. "Hello, Jake. We are just moving in." Jake got off his horse and walked closer. His boots were expensive leather and his belt buckle was pure silver. Everything about him showed money and power. "You know, Tom, I tried to buy this place from your grandfather 5 years ago. He was too proud to sell it. Now look at it. It is falling apart." "It is not for sale," Tom said firmly. Jake laughed louder. "Give it 6 months. You will be begging me to take it. This place brings bad luck, Miller. Nothing good ever grows here." Sarah stepped closer to her father. She felt angry. "My grandfather loved this land. He would not have wanted you to have it." Jake looked at the young girl with narrow eyes. "You have spirit, I will give you that. But spirit does not pay bills, little lady. Spirit does not fix broken fences or put food on the table." After Jake rode away, Tom and Sarah stood quiet for a long time. The sun was going down behind the mountains, making the sky orange and purple. Even with all the problems, the view was beautiful. "Dad," Sarah said quietly, "what if he is right? What if we cannot make it work?" Tom put his arm around his daughter. "Your grandfather used to tell me that the land chooses its people, not the other way around. He believed this place had something special. We just need to find out what that is." They walked into the house together. The inside was as bad as the outside. The wooden floors were bent and made noise with every step. The kitchen had an old stove and a sink that dripped water all the time. The living room had holes in the walls where mice lived. But Sarah noticed something else. On the shelf above the fireplace was an old photo of her grandfather, Samuel Miller. He was standing in front of the same house, but in the picture, it looked new and beautiful. Next to him was a pretty woman with kind eyes, her grandmother, who had died when Sarah was a baby. "They were happy here," Sarah said, picking up the photo. Tom nodded. "The happiest years of their lives. Your grandmother planted roses all around the house. Your grandfather had the best cattle in 3 counties. That night, they slept on air mattresses in the living room." Sarah lay awake listening to the wind blow through the cracks in the walls. She could hear her father moving around, worried about their future. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find her father already outside, looking at the broken fence. The morning sun was just coming up, and the desert looked peaceful and beautiful. "Dad, maybe it will not be so bad," she said, bringing him a cup of coffee. Tom smiled and put his arm around her. "You know what? You're right. We are going to make this work, no matter what Jake Morrison says." The next few months were very hard. Tom found work at a construction site in town. He left before the sun came up and came home after dark. Sarah started school in town, where everyone knew she was the poor girl from the broken ranch. "Look, it's Ranch Girl," whispered Kelly Morrison, Jake's spoiled daughter, as Sarah walked down the hall. Kelly wore expensive clothes and drove a new car. I heard your house does not even have running water. Sarah kept her head up and did not answer, but the words hurt. It was true, the water pump was broken and they had to bring water from town in plastic bottles. At lunch, Sarah sat alone at a corner table. She ate peanut butter sandwiches while other kids bought hot food. She tried to do her homework, but she could hear Kelly and her friends laughing at her. My daddy says they will be gone by Christmas, Kelly said loud enough for Sarah to hear. He's just waiting for them to realize they cannot do it. After school, Sarah walked 2 miles home on the dusty road. The ranch house looked even worse in the hot afternoon sun. Tom had fixed some windows, but there was still so much work to do. Sarah found her father in the barn trying to fix the roof. His face was red from the heat, and his shirt was wet with sweat. How was school, honey? He asked, not looking up from his work. Fine, Sarah lied. She did not want to make him worry more. But Tom could tell something was wrong. He came down from the ladder and sat next to his daughter on an old hay bale. You know, when I was your age, I hated this place too, he said gently. I could not wait to leave for the big city. I thought your grandfather was crazy for staying here. What changed your mind? Sarah asked. Tom was quiet for a moment. Your mother. She saw something in this land that I could not see. She said it had potential like a diamond that needs to be cleaned. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would bring you back here. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. I miss her, Dad. Me too, sweetheart. But she believed in this place and she believed in us. We cannot give up now. That evening, they worked together to clean out the old storage room behind the house. It was full of junk that had been there for years. As they carried out broken furniture and old tools, Sarah noticed something strange about one wall. Dad, look at this, she called out. This wall sounds hollow. Tom tapped on the wooden boards. She was right, there was empty space behind them. They found a crowbar and carefully removed the boards. Behind the wall was a small room that had been closed up for many years. Tom shined his flashlight into the darkness and they both gasped. The room was full of old boxes and trunks covered in dust. They carefully carried everything to the house where they could look at it under the electric lights. The first box had old photos of the ranch from the 1950s and 60s. In the pictures, the place was beautiful. Green grass grew everywhere. Prize-winning cattle ate in perfect fields. The house was painted white with bright blue shutters and roses bloomed all around. Look at this place, Sarah whispered in amazement. It was like heaven. The second box had old ranch records and account books. Tom studied the numbers carefully. Your grandfather was making good money back then. These cattle prices. Sarah, he was one of the most successful ranchers in the state. But the third trunk had the real treasure. Inside, wrapped in cloth, were dozens of old bottles. Some were dark blue, others were green, and some were clear glass with strange markings. What are these, Dad? Sarah asked, holding up a beautiful blue bottle that seemed to glow in the light. Tom looked at one bottle carefully. On the bottom it said, Miller's Magic Tonic 1955. I think, Tom said slowly, your grandfather was making something special here. Something people wanted to buy. They found a wooden box full of old recipe cards written in Samuel Miller's careful handwriting. The recipes were for different kinds of tonics and medicines made from desert plants. Cactus flower extract for headaches, Sarah read from one card. Desert sage for stomach problems. Wild mint for coughs and colds. There was also a hand-drawn map showing where to find different plants around the ranch. Some places were marked with X's and notes like Best Sage Grows Here and Cactus Flowers Bloom in Spring. At the bottom of the trunk they found a leather book. Tom opened it carefully and began to read out loud. March 15, 1955. The doctor in town says he cannot help Mrs. Henderson's pain in her joints. But I remember what my grandmother taught me about desert willow bark. Going to try making a tonic tomorrow. March 20, 1955. Mrs. Henderson says the pain is almost gone. Word is spreading. 3 more people came asking for help today. May 1, 1955. Cannot keep up with demand. People are coming from Phoenix for the tonics. Mary says we should charge more money, but it does not feel right. These are medicine, not just business. Page after page told the story of Samuel Miller's natural medicine business. He had learned the old ways from his grandmother, who learned from the Native Americans who first lived on this land. He grew and harvested desert plants, turning them into tonics that really worked. Dad, Sarah said excitedly, this is what made Grandpa successful. It was not just cattle, he was selling medicine. Tom nodded, thinking fast. But why did he stop? According to these records, the business just ended in 1962. They found the answer in the last pages of the journal. Samuel's writing looked shaky and sad. October 10, 1962. The big drug company came again today. They want to buy my recipes and shut down the business. They say people should only get medicine from doctors and drugstores, not from old ranchers like me. They are offering a lot of money, but it does not feel right. October 15, 1962. They will not take no for an answer. Jake Morrison came with them this time. He says if I do not sell, they will make sure no one in town buys from me anymore. They will ruin my reputation. November 1, 1962. Had to give in. They bought all my recipes and made me promise never to make tonics again. Used the money to focus on cattle instead, but my heart is not in it anymore. Sealed up the medicine room so Mary will not have to see it and feel sad. Sarah and Tom sat in shocked silence. Now they understood why the ranch had failed. Samuel Miller had not just been a cattleman, he had been a healer, keeping alive traditions that went back many generations. When he was forced to give up that calling, the heart went out of the place. We could do it again, Sarah said quietly. We could bring back Grandpa's medicine business. Tom shook his head. Honey, it is not that simple. There are laws now about selling medicine. The government watches everything. But Sarah was not discouraged. She had inherited her grandfather's stubborn streak. Then we will find a legal way. People still want natural remedies, Dad. Maybe even more than they did back then. Over the next week, Sarah spent all her free time reading about the plants her grandfather had used. She learned that many of them really did have healing properties that scientists had proven. Desert willow really could help with pain. Prickly pear cactus could help control blood sugar. This was not just old stories, it was real. Dad, listen to this, Sarah said one evening, reading from a library book. These plants have been studied by scientists. They really work for many things. We are not talking about fake medicine, this is real. Sarah spent weeks researching at the school library and on the internet. She learned everything she could about herbal medicine and natural products. She discovered that there was a growing market for organic, natural health products, as long as they were properly labeled. She also learned about the history of the desert plants around their ranch. The Tohono O'odham tribe had lived in this area for thousands of years, using the native plants as medicine. Her great-great-grandmother had been part Tohono O'odham, which explained how the knowledge had been passed to Samuel. Dad, listen to this, Sarah said one evening. Desert willow bark really does help with pain. Scientists have studied it. And prickly pear cactus can help control blood sugar. This is not just old stories, it is real. Tom was interested but worried. Even if that is true, we do not have money to start a business. We can barely pay for electricity. Sarah had thought about that too. We do not need much money to start. The plants grow wild on our land. We just need some basic equipment and the right permits. She had been working on a business plan in secret. According to her research, they could start small by making herbal teas, bath salts, and natural soaps. If those sold well, they could slowly expand. I even thought of a name, Sarah said proudly. Desert Wisdom Naturals. What do you think? Tom looked at his daughter's excited face and felt proud. She had her mother's determination and her grandfather's vision. Maybe they could make this work. Okay, he said finally. Let's try it. But we do everything legal and right. No shortcuts. Sarah jumped up and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Dad. I promise you will not be sorry. The next Saturday morning, they spent time walking around the ranch with Samuel's old map. Many of the plants he had marked were still there, growing wild and healthy. They found patches of desert sage with silver-green leaves. Prickly pear cactus grew everywhere, thick and healthy. Near the creek, desert willow trees swayed in the breeze. Look at all of this, Tom said in amazement. It is like nature's pharmacy right in our backyard. Sarah knelt down and picked some sage leaves, crushing them in her fingers. The smell was clean and sharp, like the desert after rain. Grandpa was right, she said. This land is special. It chose us. They started very small. Their first product was desert sage tea, made from the wild sage on their land. Sarah designed a simple label on the library computer, and they filled 50 small bags by hand. Sarah created a basic website called desertwisdomnaturals.com. She wrote about their products, trying to capture the spirit of her grandfather's work. Our desert sage tea is picked by hand from wild plants growing on our family ranch in Arizona. This traditional blend has been used for generations to promote calm and peace. Each cup connects you to the ancient wisdom of the desert. She posted their first product for $12 per bag including shipping. Then they waited. Nothing happened for 3 days. Sarah checked the website all the time but there were no orders. She started to wonder if they were crazy to think anyone would buy herbs from strangers on the internet. Then on Thursday evening, Sarah's phone buzzed with an email. She almost dropped the phone when she saw, "Order confirmation, Desert Wisdom Naturals." "Dad," she screamed. "We got an order." Their first customer was a woman named Margaret from Portland, Oregon. She had found their website and ordered 2 bags of desert sage tea. In the comments she wrote, "I have been looking for real desert sage for years. So excited to try your product." Tom and Sarah danced around the kitchen, celebrating their first sale. It was only $24, but it felt like $1 million. Over the next few weeks, more orders came in slowly. Word seemed to spread through online forums and social media. People wanted authentic, natural products with real stories behind them. Sarah added new products one by one. Desert lavender bath salts made with wild lavender and sea salt. Prickly pear healing balm for dry skin. Each product came with a card telling the story of the Miller family ranch. By November they were getting 5 to 10 orders per week. It was not enough to live on, but it was growing steadily. Then something unexpected happened. A food blogger from Phoenix found their website and ordered several products to review. Sarah was nervous. What if the blogger hated their products? But the review was wonderful. The blogger praised the quality and the real story behind them. She especially loved the desert sage tea, saying it was the most calming herbal tea I have ever tried. The blog post was shared hundreds of times on social media. Suddenly, Desert Wisdom Naturals was getting orders from all over the country. By Christmas, Sarah and Tom were working every evening and weekend to keep up with orders. They had expanded to 10 different products, all made from plants growing wild on their ranch. The money was still tight, but they were starting to hope. They had managed to fix the water pump and repair most of the windows in the house. Sarah even bought new jeans, the first new clothes she had in over a year. At school, some kids were starting to notice. When Sarah mentioned that she ran an online business, a few classmates seemed impressed rather than mocking. But Kelly Morrison was not impressed. If anything, she seemed angrier than ever. "So what if you are selling a few bags of weeds online?" she said during lunch one day. "My daddy says you are probably breaking laws. He is going to report you to the government." Sarah tried not to show it, but Kelly's words worried her. Were they breaking laws? They had tried to do everything properly, but what if they had missed something important? Jake Morrison was getting more and more angry about his neighbor's success. He started spreading rumors around town that the Millers were probably using illegal ingredients or making false medical claims. He hired a private investigator to look into their business, hoping to find some violation he could report to the authorities. The trouble started when a reporter from the Phoenix newspaper wrote a story about their success. The article was titled "From Rags to Riches: Local Family Builds Desert Empire from Grandmother's Recipes." The article told their whole story and was picked up by other newspapers. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about Desert Wisdom Naturals and the Miller family ranch. But with success came new problems. Big companies started calling, wanting to buy their brand. At first, Tom and Sarah were flattered. But as the offers got bigger and more demanding, they started to worry. "We are not interested in selling," Tom told one caller from a major pharmaceutical company. "This is a family business. Everything is for sale at the right price, Mr. Miller," the man replied smoothly. "We will be in touch." Sarah did not like the sound of that. It reminded her of what had happened to her grandfather. The final blow came in May. Sarah arrived at school to find Kelly Morrison waiting with a newspaper and a mean smile. "You might want to see this," Kelly said, practically glowing with satisfaction. The headline made Sarah's blood run cold. "Desert Products Company under investigation for unlicensed medical claims." The article said that Desert Wisdom Naturals was being investigated by the state health department for allegedly making false medical claims about their products. It quoted someone saying the company was deceiving people with false promises about healing powers. Sarah knew immediately where the complaints had come from. Jake Morrison had finally found a way to attack them. She ran home from school, tears streaming down her face. Tom was already there, having left work early after seeing the article online. "It is not true, is it, Dad?" Sarah asked. "We have been careful about our labels." Tom had spent the morning checking all their marketing materials. "I think we are okay," he said. "We have never claimed our products can cure anything. But this kind of bad publicity could destroy our business anyway." Orders started dropping immediately. Customers were canceling orders and asking for their money back. Their wholesale accounts put orders on hold. Within a week, their income had dropped by 70%. They had to let their part-time employees go. Sarah watched her father's shoulders slump with despair. Maybe we should just give up, Tom said one evening. Maybe Jake is right. Maybe we are not meant to succeed. But Sarah had been thinking. She remembered something her grandfather had written. Sometimes the only way forward is to go back to the beginning. Dad, what if we stop trying to fight Jake Morrison his way? Sarah said. What if we go back to what Grandpa really stood for? Tom looked at his daughter with confusion. What do you mean? Sarah had been rereading Samuel's journal, and she noticed something important. Her grandfather had not been focused on making money. He had been focused on helping people. Grandpa did not start making tonics to get rich, Sarah explained. He started because Mrs. Henderson was in pain and the doctor could not help her. He cared more about healing than profit. Sarah's idea was different. Instead of trying to grow Desert Wisdom Naturals into a big national brand, what if they went back to serving their local community? What if they focused on education and sharing knowledge instead of just selling products? We could offer classes, Sarah suggested. Teach people how to identify and use desert plants safely. Share Grandpa's knowledge the way it was meant to be shared, person to person. Tom was interested but worried. Honey, we need income. We cannot live on good intentions. We can still sell products online, Sarah said. But we make that secondary to education and helping people. People will respect us more if they see we are not just trying to get rich. Sarah's plan was to turn part of their ranch into an educational center. They could offer weekend workshops on desert plant identification, traditional medicine making, and sustainable living. They could host school field trips and work with local Native American communities. And here is the best part, Sarah said, her eyes shining with excitement. Jake Morrison cannot attack us for helping people learn. He will look like a bully if he tries to shut down educational programs. Tom was amazed by his daughter's wisdom. At 17, she had learned something many adults never figure out. The best way to defeat bullies is to take the high road. They started small. Sarah created a new section on their website called Desert Wisdom University. She wrote articles about the history and traditional uses of different desert plants, always being careful to include proper warnings and encourage people to talk to doctors. The response was immediate and positive. People loved learning about the traditional knowledge behind their products. Many customers wrote to thank them for the educational content. Sarah also reached out to Dr. Maria Gonzalez, a plant scientist at the University of Arizona who had studied traditional plant medicine. Dr. Gonzalez was excited to find someone preserving Samuel Miller's knowledge and agreed to help validate their educational content. Your grandfather was ahead of his time, Dr. Gonzalez told them during her first visit to the ranch. He understood things about these plants that science is just beginning to prove. With Dr. Gonzalez's help, they developed their first workshop, Introduction to Desert Plant Medicine. They advertised it locally and online, expecting maybe 5 or 10 people to show up. 23 people came to their first workshop, driving from as far as Tucson and Phoenix. They included teachers, nurses, retirees, and young families interested in natural living. Sarah and Tom led tours of the ranch, showing participants where different plants grew and explaining their traditional uses. Dr. Gonzalez gave a presentation on the scientific research supporting traditional plant medicine. The workshop was a huge success. Participants raved about the experience on social media and left glowing reviews online. More importantly, several local people signed up for future workshops, including some who had previously been skeptical of the Miller family. Word of the educational workshops spread quickly through town. Sarah was surprised when Mrs. Henderson, the librarian, approached her at the grocery store. I heard about your plant medicine classes, Mrs. Henderson said with a warm smile. My grandmother used to make remedies from desert plants, but I never learned how. Could I attend? Sarah was delighted to have Mrs. Henderson join their next workshop. What she did not realize was that Mrs. Henderson was one of the most respected people in town, and her endorsement carried a lot of weight. After attending the workshop, Mrs. Henderson wrote a letter to the local newspaper praising the Miller family's efforts to preserve traditional knowledge. She described how Sarah and Tom were honoring their heritage while educating the community. Other community leaders began to take notice. The principal of Sarah's high school asked if she would give a presentation to the environmental science classes. The county extension office wanted to partner with them on a project about native plant conservation. Even more surprising, several local business owners who had previously avoided them began to change their attitude. Pete at the hardware store approached Tom one day. I owe you an apology, Pete said. I let Jake Morrison scare me into treating you folks badly. That was not right. If you need supplies for your workshops, I will give you the best prices in town. The state health department investigation concluded after 6 weeks, finding no violations of any laws or regulations. Desert Wisdom Naturals was completely cleared of all allegations. The investigator even complimented them on their careful labeling and responsible marketing practices. But the best vindication came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Whitehorse, a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation and a professor of indigenous studies, heard about their work and asked to visit the ranch. "Your great-great-grandmother was my people," Dr. Whitehorse told Sarah as they walked through the desert together. "The knowledge she passed down to your grandfather is part of our cultural heritage. We have been looking for ways to preserve and share this wisdom in a respectful way." Dr. Whitehorse proposed a formal partnership. The Tohono O'odham Nation would provide cultural consultation and validation for their educational programs. In return, Desert Wisdom Naturals would donate a portion of their profits to support Native American education programs. "This is exactly what your grandfather would have wanted," Dr. Whitehorse explained. He understood that this knowledge belongs to all people, but it must be shared with respect and honor. The partnership was announced in a ceremony at the ranch, attended by tribal elders, university professors, and community leaders. Even some of Jake Morrison's allies began to see the Miller family in a new light. Sarah was invited to speak at the high school graduation ceremony about perseverance and following your dreams. Standing at the podium, looking out at her classmates and their families, she felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. "A year ago, my father and I came here with nothing but hope and determination," she told the audience. "We faced many challenges and people who said we would fail. But we learned that success is not about defeating your enemies, it is about staying true to your values and serving your community." By the end of Sarah's senior year, Desert Wisdom Naturals had become a model for sustainable, community-based business. They were featured in magazines as an example of how traditional knowledge could be preserved and shared in the modern world. The ranch itself had been transformed. The house was beautifully restored, painted white with blue shutters just like in the old photographs. Sarah had planted roses around the house just like her grandmother had done. The barn was converted into a modern workshop and classroom facility. Most importantly, the community had embraced them. Sarah was elected student body president and valedictorian of her graduating class. Tom was invited to join the town council and the Chamber of Commerce. Even Jake Morrison seemed to have given up his campaign against them. His daughter Kelly had graduated and moved away to college, and without her constant negativity, the atmosphere at school improved dramatically. On graduation day, Sarah was surprised to see Jake Morrison in the audience. After the ceremony, he approached her and her father. "I owe you both an apology," Jake said, his voice gruff but sincere. "I was wrong to try to drive you away. You have brought something good to this community and I respect that." Tom shook Jake's hand. "We all make mistakes, Jake. What matters is that we learn from them." That evening, as Sarah and Tom sat on their restored front porch watching the sunset, Sarah reflected on everything that had happened. "Dad, do you think Grandpa would be proud of what we have accomplished?" Tom smiled and put his arm around his daughter. "Honey, I think he would be amazed. We not only saved his legacy, we made it better. We found a way to share his knowledge with the world while staying true to his values." Sarah nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "And the best part is, this is just the beginning. I have been accepted to study ethnobotany at the University of Arizona. I want to learn even more about traditional plant medicine so I can come back and make our programs even better." "Your mother would be so proud," Tom said softly. "She always said you would do great things." As the stars came out over the desert, Sarah felt connected to all the generations who had lived on this land before her. Her great-great-grandmother, who first learned the secrets of desert plants. Her grandfather Samuel, who built a healing practice with love and care. Her parents, who sacrificed everything to give her a chance at a better life. "The land really did choose us, didn't it, Dad?" Sarah said. "Yes, it did, sweetheart. And we chose it right back." The next morning, Sarah walked out to the old cemetery behind the house where her grandparents were buried. She placed fresh wildflowers on their graves and stood quietly for a few minutes. "Thank you, Grandpa," she whispered. "Thank you for showing us the way." As she walked back to the house, Sarah could see the future stretching out before her like the endless desert horizon. There would be challenges ahead, but she was ready for them. She had learned that success was not about fighting your enemies or accumulating wealth. It was about staying true to your values, serving your community, and preserving the wisdom of those who came before you. The broken dream had become something even better than Tom and Sarah had originally imagined. They had not just saved the family ranch, they had created a legacy that would benefit generations to come. And in the process, they had discovered that sometimes the most powerful way to honor the past is to use it to build a better future.